right, Battletech fans, here we are with the return of Before the Fight. It's been quite a while since we've had one of these videos, but Battlebound is fixing to shoot out to the land of enchantment, New Mexico, to take on Jacob Claussen right here. Say hello, Jacob.
Hello.
So, we've got an interesting game coming up. I haven't had the chance to travel out of state for quite some time, and I've been wanting to get down to New Mexico for a while. So I got to say, I'm fairly excited to get down there, see what you guys do, see the store, see what all is going on down there. It seems like you guys have a rollicking scene going on in New Mexico. Is that right?
Yeah, we've had a pretty good Battletech scene for a while.
So tell me about that. How did you get involved in that, or how did you become aware of it?
Well, as far as I know, it actually long predates my joining Battletech. As to how I got into it, I think I first got into it, I was just in the back of one of our FLGS's at one point and saw some guys playing it and asked what they were doing. I think my first game, I piloted a Panther and got killed pretty quickly.
Yeah, as some of the longtime viewers will remember, my Panther got toasted in the very first episode, so I feel your pain on that one. So that's how you got into Battletech, huh? Is you just happened to be in this local game shop and curiously walked up and said, what are y'all doing?
Yep.
Well, right on. So how long ago was that?
It was probably, I want to say, like 2004-ish.
Okay, so you've got a decent chunk of time into the hobby here.
Yeah, nowhere near some of the other guys that are around here have.
That's cool. I find some people can be, really good right out of the gate, even first or second year players. And, some players that have been playing for 25 years or so, like myself, look at them and go, wow, you're like what they call in the clans, the Rye Star,
One of the first times I ever got to use TSM.
Ah.
We were playing late enough. I had a Teetsang.
Okay. Let me ask you a question.
Somebody else had the TSM Thunder, and then I think we also had the TSM Locust on our side.
Oh wow!
And we were playing against a guy who was diving into his first attempt at GMing.
Okay.
Because we share GMing duties. Some of our campaigns have been big enough where we all show up at the same day, and there's just so many players that we split into multiple tables, and it's all still part of the same campaign.
Wow.
That hasn't happened for a while, but it has happened quite a lot. But so we were working this out, and we eventually came to the conclusion. So we came up with what we called two special orders. The first one, we run onto the field, and the orders light show. Everybody fire everything, get your TSM running.
Sure.
And then the second one is shoot something else. You run up into melee range of something and don't shoot it. Shoot something else and then hit it with your TSM melee attacks.
Sure.
And we felt so bad for the guy GMing because it was one of his first games GMing. We ran up and shot 3 of his mechs, which sure. I think killed or nearly killed one in the shooting phase. And then we legged 2 of the 3 things we were meleeing at the same time. And it was just a rout. If I have the opportunity to ever pick up I think it's the 9H, the Teetsang.
Yep.
That's become one of my favorite mechs of all time.
One of the mechs that's going to be in this force of the Goon Squad, which you've seen the videos, you know what's going on. The patrons can see that now. I'll put the link here on the screen. But one of these guys has triple strength mimer on it, and it's that exterminator, I believe. No, the Grim Reaper. That's what it was. The Grim Reaper is the one that has the triple strength mimer on it. So now I'm like, oh man, we got somebody who's experienced with the TSM. So maybe you could put that to good use. So let's talk about that. We got the Christmas Crisis coming up. It's going to be 2 sets of guys, and one guy is representing the little guys, the factory workers, and the other guys are representing the corporate interests. And it's almost like Battletech meets Shadowrun meets Firefly, So how do you? I'm not entirely for sure yet who's going to be on what side. Sometimes I like to be the bad guy. Sometimes I want to, do the Snidely Whiplash. You know what I'm saying? But let's just say, for example, you're on the good guys team. How do you feel like you would do if you were on the good guy side?
To me, it actually seems like the good guys are probably in a pretty good position there. I've actually done some GMing myself. The guy who's running our current campaign is my best friend. We actually ran one years and years ago, where we actually ended up getting enough people again to regularly have 2 tables. So at that point, I retired my pilot and I became a full-time GM. So I've played both sides too, as a GM and as a player. Sure. So bad guys and good guys.
Sure.
Feels to me like the good guys might have a slight edge here.
Because I know you saw the video, the battle values are dead even. There is a 0 variance there.
Given the C3 and the inability to counter it, and the fact that they have to make that roll to identify the trucks as not being just normal civilian trucks, it feels like they might have a slight edge. First, getting their main objective, because dice are dice.
Yeah,
that can go against you, and maybe you never get to shoot at the trucks.
Right.
Maybe you get to shoot at them, but if it's an urban environment and it's few enough lines of sight, maybe they still get their primary. The harder part, I think, will be getting their units off the field again.
The good guys fighting their way through the bad guys at the end.
I think the good guys should, and again, dice are dice, but I feel like they should probably be able to, get rid of the board, the corporate overlords. I don't know how easy it's going to be for them to actually get off the field. Well, especially if they're using the C3 and holding their ranged stuff back.
Sure. The other thing is, with it being combined arms, the vehicles have much different hit locations than mechs do, and you could roll a number that against a mech would be an innocuous hit, but with a vehicle, it's going to be catastrophic. You're looking at motive system damage, or you're looking at, critical hit, even if you don't breach the armor, stuff like that. So I wanted to use vehicles for the good guys, because I thought, well, I'm going to give them this C3 network, and that's going to be kind of wonky for the bad guys not to be able to stop it. So I have to give the bad guys something. I can't just say, well, the battle value is equal and leave it at that. Yep. I have to try and play both sides here, regardless of which side I end up being on. And one of the things that I actually had to do was take the civilian trucks and say, I've got to separate their movement from everything else. Because if I don't do that, then the side playing the good guys could use them as initiative sinks, and that would just be super advantageous against the bad guys. And I thought, okay, if I make it so that all the mechs can move and then the trucks go last, I thought that made sense, because the trucks are just normal people. They're just muckrakers, so they're not looking to drive in there and go guns blazing. So they're watching what everybody does before they do it. And that just made the most sense to me. So when it came to the bad guy side, I said, okay, what can I do to give them some kind of edge back? And it was to put them up against vehicles. I knew I wanted a C3 network in there because we had one at the beginning of this season, and it didn't really work out all that well. And I feel like the fans at home watching kind of want to see a C3 network actually go the way that it's supposed to go. And it makes sense for the bad guys not to be able to counter it, because this is a surprise attack. So they don't know. They wouldn't bring that kind of stuff to the table. And so that's another thing I was curious about your opinion on, is I didn't know who would be watching and say, like, oh, come on, Talk. Like, you gave that side C3 and no ECMs on the other side. What's wrong with you? I was kind of wondering what your opinion on that whole thing was.
I fight the battles that you end up in. You can't cover every possibility that you're going to run into.
Well, sure. And the way I looked at it was, you have your corporate boss, he's not a mech jock. He doesn't know a large laser from a large pulse laser. And furthermore, he doesn't care, because that doesn't make him any money. So how is he going to know, well, these guys might ride into battle with this thing, and if I don't use this thing, he's not a strategist. He's not a military guy. He's just like, who can I throw money at to come into this town and kick these guys around so I can get my way again? Storyline wise, it made sense, but you'll always get somebody watching the video and being like, I don't know.
And on the other side, it's like the workers managed to get these mercs to come in, and who knew what the mercs had?
Right. I kind of liked that idea, as I was like, I want to build a mercenary force, but I don't want to have the standard, big honking chonkers, coming in, and everybody's just armored up for days. I was like, what would a ragtag group of freedom fighters and soldiers of fortune have at their disposal? And I was like, tanks, artillery. I was thinking about the A team. That's why we called it the gray team. And I thought I could call it the gray team because I didn't have time to paint the miniatures. So I was like, no, that's their paint scheme. Yeah, I swear. And it just reminded me of that episode where Hannibal says to BA, he's like, I know what we need for this fight, artillery. And I'm like, let me get some tanks. I don't get the chance to use that all that much on the show. Well, we've got some super sweet Death Ray Designs miniatures that were sent to us, and I decided partly that I was going to use these miniatures just for this fight because they're so cool, and I'm all about old school old school meets new school. So 80s rule of cool. Does it look cool? Yeah, all right, great, throw it on there, let's do it. So I'm all about that. So I'm glad you're excited. I'm excited too. And again, I haven't been to, the only time I was in New Mexico for Battlebound is when we were traveling through it, and this was at the end of last year. So I want to say there was a snowstorm happening on the way home, and it was all through Arizona. In Arizona, it was snowing, and this was in November of last year. And we finally got to New Mexico, and I just went, everything's normal again. I don't know, I'm fishtailing all over the place driving the car. So, because we drive, everywhere. Yep. So you play at Ettin Games a lot, that's right?
Our current campaign is being held at Ettin, and my understanding is as of today, they're open at the new location. So
I was just going to ask you, so tell me about that store. Like, how is the community there? How do you feel about it? Like, when you go there, do you feel like you're at home? That kind of thing.
So Ettin's actually one of the newer game stores in Albuquerque. I don't honestly remember when they opened. But it was a few years ago. I think they also have a location in Houston or something like that. But yeah, they have a pretty good community. Some with their old location, it was fairly small in terms of game space, so they started having to do a lot of schedule working to make everything fit. Hopefully, with the new location, that's a little less of an issue, but having the store full is always a good thing too.
Sure. I've dealt with the same issues in the past. Our home store, Dice Addiction, always has to regiment things and schedule it very tightly, so I feel that.
They do all sorts of different games there, so.
Right on. I'm very much looking forward to it, because you and I have been talking about this, gosh, I want to say since the beginning of this year, something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, it feels like maybe within the first few months, because I've been wanting to go back to New Mexico for, however long. So I'm really excited to head on down to that store, and I thank you for pointing me in that direction, because we're going to talk to him here in just a little bit. As soon as you and I are finished, we'll have him on. So where do you see Battletech going in the future? You've got some tenure in the hobby, so you started probably around the time when I would say that the hobby was in a valley, where it wasn't being played all that much. But now we're, like I have always said, we're hitting this crest again. We're coming to a peak. So do you see this cultural renaissance continuing?
I mean, when I first started gaming back in high school in the mid 90s, gaming was not a mainstream thing, in my opinion. And there were strong long-term gamers going all the way back to the 70s, but it really, to me, in my opinion, it didn't even kick into gaming becoming a mainstream thing until mid to late 2000s.
Right.
When I started playing Battletech, there were a lot of guys in our Battletech. So to me, it felt like it was a fairly big game at the time, but some of our bigger games happened after that. One of our biggest campaigns, the one where we had the new guy GMing with the TS Brigade, that was probably in 2010, 2011, somewhere around there. And then fell off for a while, came back up, fell off for a while. It's coming back up again. I mean, the new box sets, the Game of Armored Combat and the intro box, those certainly sparked a lot of interest for it. I backed the Clan Invasion Kickstarter and wish I'd had the money to get twice as many things as I did.
Same. I think that's all of us.
And it sounds like I don't pay a whole lot of attention to Twitter, but what my friend who runs our campaign right now pays more attention to some of the Battletech social media stuff than I do. And it looks like they're doing other new designs now that were separate from the Kickstarter.
Yep.
So it sounds like they're going forward with a lot of that. I wouldn't be at all surprised for him to do a later, like a Civil War Kickstarter, and they could do Dark Age, the clip game that nobody talks about.
Right.
one of our old big GMs actually got into that, and nobody really was around to play it, but he still had all the stuff, and so he would use it for especially the vehicles in our Battletech games. And now they're going forward with the Ill Clan era, which I'm not as up on my fluff as I probably should be.
Right.
I know most of it essentially up through the Jihad. I know vague bits about Jihad to Dark Age and the Dark Age itself, and anything past that, I've heard a couple words here and there.
That's where our game is actually going to take place, is just after, the word of Blake has been crushing everything in their path.
Yep.
And it's funny, I don't know if you were aware of it or not, I certainly wasn't until I went hunting for something, is the name of the planet is actually Alamogordo. It just blows my mind. It's like a one-letter difference in spelling, but I was just like, that's the burial site of Atari, so I got to do something. And that's why I named the city Gravitar, because that was an old Atari game. So
that's one of the things I actually love about the Battletech universe is I think the names for a lot of their planets are apt. They are things that humans would eventually start naming planets.
Yep.
Oh, we're bored. We're sick of naming planets. We're here.
Right.
That planet over there is dirt.
The Rock. You run out of names. It's like cars. You run out of names. You start assigning numbers.
And then some of them are like, oh well, our ancestors, they came from this place called New Mexico, and there was a town there called Alamogordo. That's where our family is from.
Sure.
Centuries ago. We're gonna name this planet that.
Yeah.
That's something that there will always be some of that. There will always be some of that, but I do just love the oddball names though.
I just saw that one and I was like, oh, that's perfect. Man, I couldn't have asked for a better planet name. And I was just like, I wanted to set it during different times, but every time I looked at it, it was in a different set of hands. And I was like, when can I do this? And some of the vehicles I wanted to use were of certain, time eras. And I'm like, I'm going to have to go into the Jihad era to get this done. So that's don't mind telling you, an era that I don't play in a whole awful lot. Usually we stop at about FedCom Civil War, but I was like, I haven't been here in a while. So let's do this. It just seemed like a fun idea to me.
Yeah, generally whenever we do a campaign, we always start somewhere around the War of 3039. Mm-hmm. And I always look forward to playing with some of the newer stuff that we don't get to play with a lot, because we always start back there. And if the campaign goes long enough, we'll get up to the Civil War, the Jihad. We've never gone past the Jihad, but that usually takes a couple of years of campaign time to get to it.
Right. Well, Jacob, it's been an absolutely great conversation, man. I'm so glad to have you here on the show, and I'm looking very forward to traveling out to New Mexico and getting the game in with you. I think after this convo, I'll put you in on the good guy side, and we'll see how you do. I'll be Snidely Whiplash this time, and we'll have Sean from Ettin Games on here in just a little bit. But I'm looking very forward to see you on a battlefield, sir. You have yourself a good one.
You too.
Take it easy. All right, Battletech fans, here we are. We're back with round number 2 here on Before the Fight, and I'm with Ettin Games co-owner and operator, Mr. Sein Bynum. So say hello.
Howdy, everyone.
And I am very much looking forward to coming down and seeing your store, brother. You sent me those pictures in my email about all the different cool stuff you've got painted on the walls down there in your Battletech room. You'd be the first store that ever had a Battletech room, so I'm very much looking forward to getting some footage of that stuff. But
let's talk a little. We have decided to call it the Mech Bay, which I don't think a lot of people are going to get. but one room is going to be the mech bay, and the other room is going to be the keep. And we're going to do this one's of course mech themed. The other room we're going to do up like a 70s basement, because
wow,
it has textured it has texture on the sheetrock, and some awful wallpaper that we just can't get off the wall.
Yeah.
So I think we're just gonna go the easy route, throw up some wood paneling, and we have an artist coming who's gonna use it as like an installation. So he's gonna put in some of his own art in there, and it's gonna be nice. It's gonna be great.
Man, that sounds exciting. I might end up having to make a second trip just to see it when it's all completed. So let's talk a little bit about that. So how did Ettin Games get started? I understand that you are the co-owner operator, and you also do this with your wife.
My wife and I own the store. It's not just me. My wife Sally pitches in a lot. Okay. She is really the brains behind it.
Okay, awesome.
I'm the conceptual side of it, and I'm just the one who happens to not have a long-term career. So this was a whole lot easier for me to do while she does her career. But she's a big part of what we do here. And then there's absolutely no way that we as a store would be where we are without her and our other employees. So it's nice to be able to go around and say that I own a game store, but
right.
equal credit, if not more, to my wife. So it's hard to tell one story without telling another.
Tell them.
I got into games when I was about 9-10 years old, in 5th grade or so. I'm basically a year younger than everybody. So everybody, I think I was the second youngest person in my graduating class from high school or something. But I'm basically a year younger than everybody. And we've moved around a lot, always had to find a way to entertain myself. Sure. So none of this would exist without Battletech.
Right.
So prefacing that, I played games. My brother and I played Battletech a little bit. We were big Star Wars geeks. My dad would always make pancakes. This is my memory. Of course, this may be completely false, and I may be looking at everything through rose-tinted glasses. But a big memory of being kids was my dad would be in on Saturday morning making breakfast, and we had several VHS tapes. One of them was recorded off the TV of first season of The Next Generation. For years, we would watch VHSs of some episodes from the first season of Next Generation, or Red Dawn, or The Empire Strikes Back.
Sure.
And so my youth is filled with these like scientific shows like Star Trek. It's filled with this very rebellious, the clan we may not name,
Sure.
And then it's filled with big stompy robots.
Yes.
Because that's what else is an AT-AT than a big stompy robot.
Yes, exactly.
Even though they're not robots, and the inner pedant inside of me just cringes every time somebody's like, "But I like Battletech, it's robots." And he's not a robot. Stop it. He's not a pilot. So I try to kill that. I try not to get too much of a actually.
Right.
But so all of this goes down in 5th grade. I meet a friend who lives up the street from me. He's got a Commodore 64. His granddad, he lives with his grandparents. His granddad retired from the Air Force. His granddad has access to the base. And this is all pre-extra security and all that. So this is back in the day when you could just drive out to the Air Force base on the other side of town. Well, he would rent floppy disks from the game rental on base. And one of the 5-inch floppies that he brought home was Mech Warrior Crescent Hawk's Inception.
Yes. All
I
right.
can never remember which one's actually first. I can never remember if it's Revenge was first or Inception was first. And like, did they make
I can't
Revenge? So it doesn't matter. I didn't know what it was wild. It was this thing. And then all of a sudden at the same time, the MechWarrior cartoon came out.
Yes. Okay.
And that changed everything. It was wild. What do you mean there's a cartoon? And, of course, right after that, they had the toys. So I had a Axeman. I had an Axeman. I had I have a Bushwhacker still somewhere. I still have, and I think I still have the little spring-loaded missile that it'll fire too. And then from there, it wasn't too long later that MechWarrior 2 came out.
Right.
So it was just this rapid progression of, we moved to a new town, started at a new school, met a new friend. This friend had this computer that could play this game that was wild, because I went from a Nintendo to a Sega Saturn to an Xbox. Yep. So I skipped so much. I feel terrible. I feel like a poser because I know nothing about Pokemon, but I know every battle mech. If you show me a battle mech, I'm like, yeah, that's a Shootist, that's a Grendel, that's a Piranha. So all of this happened. I'm 10, 11, 12 years old, and this stuff's just blowing up. And next thing you know, we find out that there's a game store in town. There's this other game. There's this cartoon. There's MechWarrior 2. There's also this game called, just Battletech. And that's when source books started coming into the house and tons of novels. And I don't think I ever paid attention in class after that.
Yeah, everything just clicked.
So for a few years, for the rest of, for fifth grade, sixth grade, lots of games, playing all the time, doing all that. Of course, I went to middle school in West Texas, and so that's football country. And I'm 6'3", and in my prime, I probably weighed 240.
Okay.
With a lot of muscle. If I lost the muscle, I think the least I ever weighed was 210. I'm 285 now or something. I'm a big old boy, and so I started playing football, and all the game stuff kind of went by the wayside. I knew nothing about Dungeons and Dragons. I knew nothing about. I knew BattleTech, and then if I would show up to the game store and the old guys who were there, who were probably my age now, they're probably in their late 30s. If those guys weren't playing BattleTech, if they were playing Necromunda, they would throw a mini at me and here's a record sheet, kid, and I would end up playing Necromunda.
Okay.
So those are the only two things I know past maybe Magic the Gathering and some other stuff. So fast forward about 20 years. Go from let's say 94, 95. Let's go to 2014. I always maintained my love of BattleTech. I read every single novel, picked up every single source book I could. And I really, really wanted to get back into playing it. And I was living in Houston at the time. And at a very prominent position off of one of the major freeways is a store that has a Timberwolf painted on the window. And boy, oh boy, I was like, I'm over 30 now. Right. Got a steady paycheck. I'm ready to start spending some money, and I'm more comfortable about being a nerd. I'm not hanging out with. I'm not hanging out with the football crowd anymore, so I'm not doing that. And I went into the shop, and lovely as they were, they had almost no BattleTech.
Oof.
So I cried a little bit on the inside. And
yeah.
A few months later, I drove past and saw a store way out on the northeast side of Houston, and they had a BattleTech poster in the window. And so I wandered in, and same kind of story, like, hey, I saw your BattleTech poster out there. Got any BattleTech? And they didn't, because this was the real dark ages of BattleTech. Yep. But the owners were there, and they, talked to me. Hey, what else are you interested in? What do you know about games? What do you do? Blah, blah, I want to say blah, 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 but it's important stuff.
Sure.
And I fell in love with the place. I felt comfortable. I felt welcome. I felt invited. I'd actually I'm not going to name a name of another store in Houston, but I had found a lance of mechs at that first store that I talked about.
Yep.
Went to a different store and said, hey, you know, so-and-so at the other store said that you guys have some folks who paint on commission, you know, and I'd really love to have this lance painted up in these colors. And I got a weird reception. I don't know exactly what was going on. I think they kind of assumed that I would know something that I didn't. And so I said, well, I tell you what, you know, I'll put a note with this. And if you want to show it to them whenever they get here, if they just want to give me a call, you know, I'll let them know and we can work out and you know, whatever. It's a commission. Yeah. Never got a call back. So a whole lance of mechs gone.
But like you just lost them, that you never got them back?
They were just gone. Yeah. Never got them back. Never heard back from anybody. Nothing. And these were old Raul Partha minis, not even Ironwind. These were original Raul Parthas.
Going up there with a hammer.
It's just, it's one of those things with game stores is, you know, you have a certain knowledge. I have a certain knowledge. We all have a certain knowledge. And when it gets to a point where people expect you to know, they just kind of assume that you know what's going on, and it's very off-putting.
Sure.
It's not. In some cases, if you want to go join a club, of course, a club has intentional gatekeeping set up. But I think the worst thing that has ever happened in gaming and in a lot of other things, maybe that I'm not involved in, so I don't know. I'm just assuming that this happens elsewhere. Is there's unintentional gatekeeping?
Oh yeah.
And it is completely, a lot of times it is completely accidental. Sometimes it's not. So that's what I felt wasn't there. I didn't feel like there was any sort of gatekeeping. These guys, they didn't know me from Adam. They knew nothing about me. They didn't know how much money I had. They didn't know whatever. It was like, hey, what do you play? What are you into? What do you like? What's your experience and all this? And that was the original Ettin Games. They've gone through one of the owners who was there at the time is still the owner. A couple of the other owners have gone on to do other things. But the owner right now is Dave. He's a wonderful guy. I love Dave to death. I have to share my favorite memory of him was we got to play a late night session of D&D one time, and I got to see Dave prance around, mimicking a dance in a tavern.
All right.
And Dave's a bigger guy than I am.
Sure.
And I've never seen someone, you know, bigger than me be so fanciful in their footwork, just for a role-playing game.
Sure.
But it's that's a really long way to answer your question. Is I went back into the Ettin in Houston and felt welcome, loved it. It was a great environment. I really dug it. And about 6 months after I went in, I was working for an oil company and got laid off, like a lot of people did back in 2015.
Okay.
2015. And so I had a lot of free time on my hands after that, and I hung out there a lot and loved it. Made a lot of friends, and moved up here to Albuquerque in October of 2015, and realized that there was room. There was room for something different.
Room for growth.
Yeah.
All right.
And so here we are.
And you've said that your wife is like the brains of the operation?
My wife is very much the brains of the operation. She has a wonderful career that even in the it was a little over 5 years ago that we started dating, and we've been married officially 2 years now.
Right on.
But even in that short amount of time, it's been awesome. Her career has grown a lot, and she's really helped me to sort of get out of some of my maybe hobo-ish bohemian vagabond ways and stop being the black sheep and kind of settle down and
Sure.
and make something of whatever passion I have. So yeah, and she's great. I try to do better every day because she does a lot. And
Sure.
And you know, I want to make sure that I'm pulling my weight. The one thing about having a business kind of centered around your hobby, you don't get to participate in your hobby as much as people probably think you do. And the craziest part about it is, you know, I spent a lot of my life doing other things. I didn't start out from 5 years old. I know about this thing and I'm gonna be into it for the rest of my life.
Right.
It went in, you know, there were waves in it. It was this huge thing when I was 10, 11, 12, and then it just kind of faded away for 20 years. So when I got back into it, I've never had the chance to play as much as I want to. Some of that is just not having the time. Some of it is not having anybody to play against. Another part is I just have some sort of generalized anxiety about playing a game, and I don't know if it's the fat middle schooler who always got picked last for flag football, you know, and I'm just always like, I don't like competition because I usually don't do that well.
Right.
But over the past few years, getting into other games, I keep coming back to Battletech, not only because I love the universe and I'm way too far invested in it now to give up on it.
Sure.
But after seeing different rule sets for different miniatures games, I keep coming back to this because it's balanced. It's fair. It's a mech is a mech is a mech is a mech, and especially if you play the classic, the 3025 era, the loadout. You know, how fast does it go? How much armor does it have? Does it have jump jets? But I know that, so I can look at a mech on the other side of the field and know, okay, well, he's in a Valkyrie. I know what a Valkyrie has. He's in a Centurion. He's in a catapult, this or that. And you have more, I guess, I don't want to try to cosplay, you know, a real military person, but you have more information of the battle space.
Sure.
And you know, hey, there's an Atlas over there. Don't go near it.
Sure. You know what it's capable of. Just
I know what it's capable of. And there are some other games that have so many units that you would think, oh, well, I could march up to this guy. This guy looks like he's like an anti-tank guy, so I can move some infantry up to him. That's not how it works.
And then he'll like wipe the floor with you.
Yes.
Ah.
I've had more silly, fun experiences playing Battletech than any other game. Even though I'm probably not that good at it, I like it. I like the universe. I like the story. I like everything behind it. So I want people to be able to play games. I want dads to play with their sons. I want moms to play with their daughters. I want cousins. I want random strangers to be able to play games to enjoy themselves. I don't want anybody to ever have to feel like they are the chubby kid getting picked last for dodgeball.
Right. Yep.
That's I don't want anybody to ever feel that way. The wonderful part about Battletech is you can say 100 tons and I can take an Atlas, or you can take an Atlas and I can take 5 Locusts. Mm-hmm. And while an Atlas is a beast of a machine, I've got a chance with 5 Locusts.
Sure.
Even disregarding battle value, just doing tonnage, I've got a chance with 5 Locusts. It's really about strategy, how you move those mechs around the board. Are we going to get lucky with some shots? Are we going to get unlucky with some incoming fire? You got a chance. You know,
well,
it's
There's a guy here on YouTube that actually did a video like that. It's funny you bring up that particular scenario because in the original 3025 technical readout, the blurb for the Atlas, one of them anyway, reads that an Atlas could be expected to take on an entire battalion of Stingers and retire an hour later for minor repairs after it had completely decimated, you know, the force of Stingers. And this guy decided, you know what, I'm going to put that to the test, and literally stuck an Atlas against a lance of Stingers at a time, and just saw how long that thing would actually last going through the paces. I'll put a link to it. But yeah, if you haven't seen that, that's kind of a fun video.
I think I would like to see that.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. it's really neat, just for somebody to take that random blurb and be, you know, super inspired by it and say, you know, I want to try that. And that's not something I ever would have thought to try in a million years. But it was a pretty interesting outcome.
I will say that anybody who would pick a Stinger over a Wasp is a degenerate.
Yeah, crazy.
Like, you had a Wasp and you picked a Stinger? Come on.
Okay.
This is disappointment. That's what this face is.
Right?
Pure unbridled disappointment.
Well, I mean, it's like, you know, the time, it was kind of like everything was just put together out of whatever it is you swept up off the floor that day. And, you know, if you had to take some, you know, siding off of a truck or something and patch your armor up with it, it was like, well, I still have a mech. So maybe that was the reasoning behind that. Well, sure, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I look very forward to heading down to Ettin Games and checking out everything you guys got in the store, seeing your Battletech room, and most importantly, meeting you face to face. I'm looking very forward to it, sir.
It'll be nice to have you here. Can't wait till this weekend. I'm ready for the mech bay to get christened with the exploding hydraulic fluid of 36 Stingers.
All right, fantastic. I'm looking very forward to it, sir. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Your ideas are intriguing to me, and I wish to subscribe to your newsletter.
Crowdfunding is when lots of people give you small amounts of money to help your passion project come to life.